mired in toxic partisanship, left versus right, us versus them. While we pay to keep our politicians fighting, how do we, the people, rise up and solve the great challenges of our time? We do it by embracing freedom and liberty. There may be no such thing as a free lunch, but this hour is as close as it gets. Welcome to A Free Solution.
All right, welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today. Thank you so much for joining us on this wonderful Monday afternoon. We're live today at WYSL until 1 p.m. Give us a call if you want to participate in the show, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. Of course, shout out down the line to our friends listening over at WACK out in Newark and our friends listening online, Free Solution Facebook page, Free Solution YouTube channel, the Kevin Wilson pages, wherever you're listening today. Appreciate y'all being here. Of course, it being a live show, you can also comment online if you're listening there as well. And so today we're going to talk about, well, it's something that's been in the news for a couple weeks now. It's still kind of like lingering there. And I didn't want to comment on it because I didn't really understand the conversation with this. And this is, like I'm paying attention to this stuff all the time so I can do a show. And I know like the rest of you are too, but sometimes you lose something in the news because there's a whole bunch of other noise going on. And I like to take a beat, just take a moment to try to actually understand what the heck people are talking about before running my mouth about it, every once in a while. Because with this new education law down in Florida, right? You got a bunch of people who are kind of passionately on either side of this. And whenever anyone gets riled up about a law like this, I want to know, like, okay, does this actually do what the Democrats say? Does this actually do what the Republicans say? Are there any areas of this law that may provide some constitutional pitfalls, some opportunities for abuse of authority or something else? And so that's how I'm approaching today's show, right? So we're talking about HB 1557, the education bill down in Florida. And I want to dig into, again, what the heck does it actually do? How are Democrats talking about this? How are Republicans talking about this? And then what are some solutions to what this bill is supposed to solve in education? So we'll talk about the bill itself, right? So the bill itself, again, HB 1557. I'll post a link in the comments if you're listening online so you can follow along with what the heck I'm talking about. If you're a proponent of the law, you're going to call it, its official name, which is the Parental Rights in Education bill. Again, this was signed by Ron DeSantis not too long ago, passed by both the Florida House and Florida Senate. Again, read the links online if you want to see what bill I'm actually talking about. And if you're an opponent of the law, if you don't like it, you're probably calling it the Don't Say Gay bill, right? And so the people who are passing this law, the way it's being framed is, well, this is just a way to, it says it right there in the name, to give parents more control over the education that their students receive, specifically how it relates to gender identity, sexual orientation, and sexual education, right? So that's what proponents say. Like, this just makes sure that parents can't indoctrinate their kids in the classroom, and that, or teachers can't indoctrinate kids in the classroom, and that parents have some recourse to be able to challenge districts and individual teachers who are doing this, right? Whatever that indoctrination means, right? People kind of get out of scope on that side too. But and then if you're an opponent of law, in a nutshell, you're saying, well, the way it's written, it would prohibit anyone from being able to acknowledge homosexuality in the classroom. It would erase teachers' ability to be able to discuss partners or to answer questions related to a student saying, like, well, why does, Jimmy have two moms or something, right? That's the way the opponents do this. They say, well, if a teacher responds to this, they could be fired or get sued if a kid asks about this and the teacher actually answers that question. So that's why when they call it the Don't Say Gay bill, that's what they're accusing this bill of doing. again, we're gonna dig into this over the course of the next segment or two to figure out, well, does it actually do this stuff? Does it accomplish the goals that Republicans say that it accomplishes? And is there, again, a better approach to this? Because I'm I'm sympathetic to, and I talked about it a lot. And I'm sympathetic to parents who want to have more control over their kids' education. That I want to be able to determine what my kid learns, when he learns it, and give him the opportunity to run and provide his own educational opportunities too. Now, I'm skeptical that the public school system, particularly where I live, is going to be able to deliver that. I'd love to be proven wrong, but I'm skeptical of that. I live in the city of Rochester. I just don't know that that's going to be the best solution for my family. Um, and so I want parents to be able to do that. So when I hear more parental choice, great. And I also think that it is important for parents to be able to have some control over how they educate their kids about, again, things like sexual orientation, gender identity, and sexual education generally. Now, the tricky point with those types of discussions is if things just come up in the classroom, what do teachers do about it? And then what should be part of the official state curriculum on those topics? And kind of showing my hand a little bit, it's like the more we come to rely on public school systems to teach this stuff, the less parents take responsibility to do that, the more this is going to be part of the fight. And this isn't just this is a Democrat, Republican, everyone thing. It's we've outsourced so much education, not just the reading, writing, math stuff, but we outsource so much education to the schools that the schools feel sometimes understandably that they need to tell kids about this stuff going on in the world because who else is telling them? Because some kids that they're not like many of the parents I'm sure listening to a show who tell their kids, this is how this stuff works, to answer questions on it. Some kids they don't get that at home. So schools feel like they need to do that. I'm not justifying it. I'm just saying that that's what happens. That's the thinking that goes into this. And on the other hand, right, while I stand for parental rights, I do also want to support many of my friends, some of whom are gay or trans or allies, and they're concerned about this. They're concerned about this type of thing and what it does to both the teachers in the classrooms and the students, whether or not it chills free speech and whether or not it makes it more difficult for students to talk about their own orientation and gender identity issues and at which age, right? And they're concerned that this bill will end up pushing kids and others into the closet and causing further mental health problems in that group of people. And I'm sympathetic to that. Again, having friends who have described this both publicly online and elsewhere, I want to listen to their concerns and listen when they say the state is doing something that is going to bring violence against me and people like me. Okay, keep an open mind about that. It doesn't always mean that I agree with their assessment, but I want to keep an open mind about that and listen. So again, over the course of this hour, we're going to evaluate the bill itself. We're going to talk about the different provisions of this, kind of jump back to how each side is talking about this and what it's supposed to do, and then reference that with the bill itself. Uh, Again, I want to make sure that we're coming away with a solution here, though. And is the solution to have the state do this type of stuff? Because the state of Florida is, they're being very proactive in at the state level on education in the last couple of years. Ron DeSantis, for better or worse, is being proactive in this. I was not a big fan of his approach to how he decided to tackle critical race theory, which is to ban it in classrooms. And that set of laws ended up getting struck down for being unconstitutionally vague, that people could not understand. It wasn't clear how teachers and educators and curriculum developers were supposed to approach this topic given the instructions that came out of the law. And we're probably going to end up with something similar here. And so, You can go look it up. And the bill number, if you want to, you're listed at a radio and you're on your way to lunch or something, you want to look up what this actually does. Look up as HB 1557. You can find that there's like a House description and a Senate description down in Florida. And I also want to make sure we're tying this back to New York too, because the important part of this provision too is the parents being able to sue the district and the teachers thing. And we've talked about that in relation to the gun laws, in relation to abortion laws, and now in relation to this too. And it's something that both Republicans and Democrats are trying to do to find a way to circumvent the system of directly attacking an idea or a policy or an item they don't like. And so they do it by allowing people to sue independently in other courts. I don't think that's a good way to do things. All right, thanks again for joining us here on The Free Solution. If you want to weigh in this, though, give us a call, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovation should be your first call. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
Oh, those injury attorney ads.
Hurt on your couch? Call 555-OUCH.
It's kind of cute watching that injury attorney buying breakfast for a crash test dummy, but while fun is fun, there's nothing amusing about getting your life back together after a personal injury or a motorcycle accident, or when you need defense for a DWI charge. Christopher Johnson takes your case seriously, and you'll feel like you're his only client because when you meet with him, your case gets 100% of his attention. So instead of cute singing jingles and magic phone numbers,
Fall out of a tree? Call 33333.
write this number down and keep it with you. 585-415-3803. 415-3803. After all, Christopher Johnson knows you're no dummy. Get individual attention and integrity, experience, and expertise. Put the power of one on your legal team. 415-3803. Stay safe, be healthy, drive sober. Christopher Johnson Attorney, personal injury, car or motorcycle accidents, DWI defense.
As a veteran of the United States military, I can finally get the opportunity to enjoy special events, things that we couldn't afford, thanks to VetTix. Every empty seat at a concert, a game, or a play is a missed opportunity to say thanks to a veteran and service member. We can give our veterans a special event where they too can create their own cherished memories. Visit vettix.org. Find out how you can make a difference in a veteran's life.
Only available in the WISL store at WISL1040.com. Official top quality tees, hoodies, and coffee mugs depicting the colorful WISL logo or the already famous Mount Worstmore line of merch depicting Mount Rushmore style are for worst presidents. Of course, you know who is front and center up on that mountain. WISL official items make perfect gifts, or they're a great way for you to make a personal statement. Locally produced and sold only in the WISL store at WISL1040.com.
A free solution.
Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today. Thanks again for joining us. Again, we're live here on WISL. Give us a call, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. If you'd like to participate in the show, we'd love to hear from you. And we're going to go over what does the bill actually say. I'm going to read the actual text of the bill. Again, if you're listening online, I posted the link in the comments. You can read along with me. If you're not listening, you can look it up, HB 1557, or just look at the link at a Free Solutions Facebook page. Make sure you like that and follow us there too. So here's what it does. It's parental rights and education. First clause says requires district school boards to adapt procedures that comport with certain provisions of law for notifying students' parent of specified information. Okay. School board has to notify students of this list of stuff. First part. Requires such procedures to reinforce fundamental right of parents to make decisions regarding upbringing and control of their children. Okay. Sounds good in theory, right? Like the parents have a right to make decisions regarding their kids' upbringing. And now, what that means here, it's a little bit unclear though. Like, what specific procedures are they going to reinforce? What rights are they reinforcing here? It's a little bit vague, and you'll see this. It's kind of a theme in this bill, which is what I think is going to get them in a bit of trouble. Prohibits school district from adopting procedures or student support forms that prohibit school district personnel from notifying parent about specified information or that encourage student to withhold from parent such information. All right, so here's a part of the bill that's driving controversy on both sides, right? So what opponents of this bill say that this clause means is that, for instance, if a student discusses their gender identity with a teacher or other school personnel, that they have to notify the parent about that. That's what this section seems to indicate that it means, right? So even if a student's like, I don't want to tell my parents, I haven't told my parents about this, about my feelings to gender identity, any of that stuff, please don't tell them. I'm worried it's going to be unsafe. They're supposed to tell parents about that anyway. And the idea being is that, and you can see this in the next clause, it prohibits district personnel from discouraging or prohibiting parental notification and involvement in critical decisions affecting students' mental, emotional, or physical well-being. And that if a student is showing signs of gender dysmorphia, right, they're questioning their identity or they're questioning sexuality or any of that stuff, that is something that parents need and ought to know about. Right. Therefore, a teacher cannot hold that information, or other school personnel cannot hold that information in confidence. It has to be shared with the teacher, even if it's against the wishes of the student. And this is a tough situation. Like, genuinely, I don't know. Again, do I, as a parent, want to know everything that's going on with my kid? Yeah, sure. Again, that's what it is. But do teachers or others, and I don't know how this specifically applies to school counselors. There's a little bit unclear on that. If they have to share it, then I could see how that could be a greater problem. If students can't go to school counselors or school psychologists and have that information held in confidence for them, they're probably not going to be forthright with what's going on in their lives. And that can create issues, right? Other than mandated reporting issues, which I assume Florida has, New York certainly has. Like, there are certain things that teachers and counselors and anyone working with kids have to report, like certain types of abuse has to be reported to the state no matter what. Like, legally, they're in trouble. That's, again, a New York State thing for sure. I assume there's something similar in Florida, and it seems to expand this to include these issues of sexuality and gender identity, right? That those conversations, again, have to be sent back to parents, because parents have a right to join that discussion and look out for the well-being of their kids. Again, opponents suggest that by doing so, you may be creating unsafe environments where kids can't express themselves in school. I don't know what the right answer is to that, because I feel bad for some of these kids who might be confused and worried and don't know how to talk to their parents about this stuff yet and don't want to be outed to them. And in some cases, it could literally be unsafe for those kids. I don't know. But in other cases, getting the parent involved might be the actual best thing for that child. And this is where things get tricky. All right. Sounds like we have a caller on the line. Megan from Florida. Megan.
Hey, how are you doing?
Fantastic.
I haven't talked to you in a while. We were on Shannon Joy's.
Yeah, that's right. I was wondering if that was the same Megan.
Yeah, the same Megan. So I'm in Tallahassee, and I'm actually in the district that started this conversation. I went to the middle school where this all started from, and and I agree with you that there are parts of this that people are fighting over, and that there are parts of it that people are finding to be kind of too vague. What I think that is kind of important is that we do have a conversation at some point on what is appropriate in grades K through 3 to be talking about in regards to, the human body and growth and development. And children in that age range don't usually bring up a lot of questions on their own having to do with this, unless there's something else going on at home or in terms of general sexuality. I'm not talking about. Now, there are times when someone will say, like, hey, my friend has 2 mommies. And generally the way that that's handled in the classroom is you say something along the lines of, she does, and they both love her very much. And it's really important that all of our families and all of our children are in really loving environments, just like she has. And you can, I'm sorry, I have 3 little kids and they're being really loud right now.
I totally understand. I have one little boy and he has an ear infection, so he is very grumpy right now. And luckily you can't hear him.
Input from the crowd as well. But, and I feel like they took it and they ran with it to be something that it isn't. I do think it's both caused some people to kind of come out of the woodwork and show themselves that, hey, we kind of were using the classroom as a platform of discussing inappropriate content with inappropriate age groups. But what I feel is lacking is that there's no clear-cut guidance. It says, pivot to the state standards, but human growth and development standards also really come into play in grades 4th and higher. And so what you talk about with kindergartners through 3rd grade is non-pet name anatomical body part names. And basically, you don't touch other people there. They don't touch you there. And you need to tell a trusted adult if someone tries to. That's about it for, you explore the human body in kindergarten. And by explore, I mean, like, that is part of the curriculum, but it's more
right. You like, just like, this is what these things are, right?
It's not all focused around genitalia or gender, because we also don't have a tendency to be teaching abstract concepts to children who are, my child will spend 2 days straight as a velociraptor, and
right.
And that's perfectly fine. Go through phases of exploring themselves. We're not trying to concrete anything at that point. But I do think that maybe there wouldn't be so much confusion. Now, do I think it'll be overturned? In Florida right now, I'm not really sure. I question whether it will be, just because of I think that if the other side of the argument had taken more of a rational approach to saying, okay, specifically, what does this say, instead of making the whole national messaging about something it doesn't say, like it also doesn't say, okay, teaching the mechanics of heterosexual interactions or anything of that nature to children well, anyway. So
yeah,
that's all I really had to say.
and I appreciate you bringing up that point too, because like that's what I'm trying to sort through here is like, what is this? How do we sort through all the partisan noise that we're hearing way up here in New York to figure out, well, what does this bill actually do? Are other states doing stuff like this? Like, what does it mean, like, constitutionally, and for like how we think about education for children across all grades?
So for anybody who doesn't know who I am, my relevant experiences as a district education director in Florida, and I was over special populations, and so I do have some input in this area, but this is not, I'm not a sex ed teacher. This is not largely my domain, but I am familiar with Florida standards, and so what I think would be helpful is to take a nice long look at what the actual Florida standards are for each age range and say, okay, does this go against them, or does it
Megan, we're
support the-
going to have to head to a break really quick. So we're going to be back here on A Free Solution in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon.
Celebrating 35 years. AM 1040 Avon Rochester, FM 92.1 Rochester, and FM 95.5 Spencerport.
Here's the latest forecast from the News 10 NBC Weather Center for today. We'll have mostly cloudy skies out there, mainly dry. There might be a little sprinkle this afternoon, but generally dry weather. Temps today in the 40s. For tonight, we'll drop back into the mid-30s with a mostly cloudy sky. On Tuesday, slightly milder. We'll have sunny and clouds, temperatures into the 50s. I'm Rich Canilia, WYSL.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
Hi, my name is Ryan Bourne.
And I'm Danica Bourne.
And we're the owners of South Coast Tax. We would like to thank our Lord for protecting us from evil. Psalm 91 states, "He is my refuge and my fortress, for he will rescue us from every trap and protect us from deadly disease."
South Coast Tax are Christian-based tax accountants and attorneys who specialize in releasing bank levies, wage garnishments, and filing complex tax returns. We are the leaders in acceptance of offers and compromise with awesome results.
We are also a small firm who will treat you like family and not just a number.
Call us today at 1-800-TAX-3156 for a free consultation, and we'll take the time to explain all of the programs that you qualify for in order to allow you a fresh start.
In John 8:36, so if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. And one way we can achieve that is by being debt-free. So let us help you today. Call us at 1-800-TAX-3156, and together we can help achieve this goal by putting the IRS tax debt behind you for good. Again, that number is 1-800-TAX-3156.
Looking for something meaningful to do? As a Camp Good Days volunteer, you'll work with children and adults who will inspire you. Just listen to what one volunteer says about her experience.
I get a lot more out of camp than these kids. All I have to do is sit back and look around at the end of the week. The perseverance and just the strength that these children have. It's just such an inspiration in my life. I learned so much and it gives me strength, really puts life into perspective for me.
Learn more about many volunteer opportunities at campgooddays.org.
Geneseo Hardware and Rental has all your project needs. They have a large selection of hardware, plumbing, electrical, home goods, lawn and garden, plus much more. Geneseo Hardware offers Valspar paint, Cabot stains, a wide selection of rental items, plus screen and window repair. Get personalized service. Open 7 days a week. Geneseo Hardware and Rental, Route 20A next to Wegmans Plaza. Visit geneseo-rental.com.
Next to life itself, time is God's greatest gift. Every minute of your child's precious school years should be spent in devotion to truth, not some agenda. An Archangel School K-12 classic Catholic-based education fosters achievement, not conformity. Affordable, safe, small class sizes, and zero time wasted on CRT or Common Core. Your family values are honored, and parental involvement is warmly welcomed. Archangel School kids learn to soar, not march. 247-1112.
Mitchell Pearson Jr. Realtors Incorporated was founded in 1972 to offer comprehensive real estate services throughout the greater Rochester and Finger Lakes areas. And Mitchell Pearson will touch numerous nonprofits, including the United Way, Pittsford Volunteer Fire Department, the New York Warrior Alliance Wounded Warrior Program, Mercy Flight, and the Challenger World Series. They truly live up to their motto. Attention, care, effort, integrity have always been the cornerstone of their approach to helping you. Remember the name, Mitchell Pearson Jr. Realtors.
Livingston County Pizza Company and Gluten Free Bakery has a great deal on Tuesdays. A large 4-topping pizza for $18, regular or gluten free. Call 226-9575. Open Tuesday through Sunday. Livingston County Pizza Company and Gluten Free Bakery in Avon.
Red Wings Radio.
This is Josh Wetzel, voice of the Rochester Red Wings. Keep up to date on the Red Wings weekday mornings following the local news all season on the WYSL stations.
A free solution.
Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today. Thanks again for joining us on this wonderful Monday. Live here in WYSL until 1 p.m. Give us a call, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. Or we got a number ticking on the bottom of the screen, too, if you're listening online, 866-552-1009. Either one. Megan, appreciate the call in from Florida about this, too. And also shout out down the line to our friends listening over at WACK out in Newark as well. Again, give us a call if you want to participate, 585-346-3000. If you want to join in on today's show. And so we're talking about, again, what the bill actually does. And I can appreciate the call from Megan discussing some of the aspects from a parent in that district and an educator down there. And one of the things that she was starting to bring up, I hadn't quite gotten to this part in the bill, but the part that prohibits, and again I'm quoting now, prohibits classroom discussion about gender, about sexual orientation or gender identity in certain grade levels. And again, that's the part that people are jumping in saying, this is a big reason why this is a bad bill too, because this is the don't say gay part, because they're worried that without defining more specifically what that is, it leaves it open to abuse. It leads it open to frivolous lawsuits. It will bog districts down in expensive suits. That's the worry anyway, because parents will interpret that more aggressively than might seem appropriate to the district. And the quote directly from the bill itself, it mostly has to do with kindergarten through third grade, and it says that they can't teach this stuff, sexual orientation or gender identity, in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate in accordance with state standards. Again, Megan started mentioning like what the state standards are. This part of the bill, one of the things that kind of the conservative and libertarian crowd talking about, we don't want sex education in classrooms anyway, right? Well, this bill doesn't actually prohibit sex education in classrooms. That still happens. That's not being stopped by this bill. This is just sexual orientation and gender identity. That's what this prohibits. There's still some sort of sex education curriculum in Florida, and in most states there is some sort of age appropriate sexual education, which as our last caller mentioned, probably just has to do with naming the correct body parts. Like, these are what these things are. There's no shame in understanding what your body parts are, naming them correctly, and then this is something, again, because that's part of their body. Their creator made them that way. There's nothing wrong with that. And it's also something that a lot of educators do, a lot of curriculums do in order to protect kids too, because there's the thought that if kids understand the language of like what their body parts are, that if something happens to them, they'll be able to describe the experience that happened to them accurately. If they literally don't have the language around that, that's can create some situations where abuse can go on longer than might otherwise happen in that situation. And so that's why they do it. Again, this is something that like was part of the curriculum when I was growing up in Georgia in the mid 90s. There's like the good touch, bad touch curriculum type of stuff, right? Again, these are the parts. If someone you tell an adult that type of thing. This bill doesn't change that. This stuff is still happening. It's changing related to just specifically sexual orientation and gender identity, and it has to be age appropriate material in accordance to the state. So it references this whole other stuff, age appropriate as defined by the state of Florida. That's what that is. And so I want to get that out of the way because that seems to be kind of a big misconception about what this bill does or doesn't do. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to do with sexual education. And in fact, someone tried to bring an amendment, another member of the Florida legislature tried to bring an amendment to say, like, well, do you mean we don't want sexually explicit content talked about in the classroom? And they said, no, that's not what that undermines the intent of what we're trying to do with this bill. And it opens up the accusation that this bill is to prohibit discussion about same-sex couples just existing, right? That opens up that interpretation of like, well, if you weren't trying to get kind of sexually explicit stuff out because it doesn't ban that, then what are you trying to do? It brings up that, like, well, again, if a student in the classroom says, well, what about so-and-so with you? What do you do? And I think Megan's response was appropriate and something that we'd expect out of most educators. That's all they're going to say. Yep, that kid has 2 moms or 2 dads, and they love them very much. That's great. And move on from the discussion, right? You know, how far do you need to go with K through 3? And so by not defining that, or perhaps they're going to be defining it later, that's where this bill creates some worry. And in fact, it creates some worry with me too, because I don't like when government has a vague standard of speech, either for educators or for us or for anything else, and then leaves it open to wide interpretation. Because that's where I think this gets in trouble. Because if you have that, then you're like, well, what is or isn't prohibited? Is that discussion mentioned in the previous segment fine? Or is that something that would run afoul of this bill? And you might think, well, of course not. That makes sense. They're just addressing a student concern. But like, if a parent brings a suit, is that going to tie up district resources? It's going to tie up teacher resources fighting that suit because a parent feels that even that discussion is inappropriate. Does this open that up to that? And so that's where I think that this law is going to really run into some trouble. Is they're not clearly defined, because the last part of the bill says, well, it has a part about notifying parents of healthcare services, but then the last part says authorizes parent to bring action against school district to obtain declaratory judgment, provides for additional award of injunction relief, damages, and reasonable attorney fees and court costs to certain parents. Again, this is in the summary of the bill, which I have up on the screen for anyone watching online. You can read it right there, reading off the same thing. That's the part where parents can see the district if someone runs afoul of the bill. And like, I've seen this pattern start to pop up more and more. We saw it in California, we saw it in Texas. We're probably going to see it more among Democrats too, against areas that you don't like, where if you as a citizen don't like something that either the state or a medical provider or a company isn't doing, you're getting more options to be able to sue them. And that's a way to circumvent the state directly going after this thing they don't like, again, whether it's abortion, gun control, whatever, and get citizens to be able to bring private actions against it. And in this case, leaving it open vaguely enough where parents can interpret this in numerous ways. So without being specific about what that classroom instruction is, and maybe that's coming later. If I want to give them the benefit, maybe that's coming later. Like, well, what specifically about gender orientation or gender identity, sexual orientation or gender identity are we prohibiting discussing in the K through 3 class? What is appropriate content for kids older than that? Well, if the teachers know that they have a set of guidelines, then okay, cool. And then we can, fight over the guidelines. It's always going to happen, but at least there's a clear definition of this is what is supposed to be and this is what it isn't. So instead of having the chilling effect of vagueness, shutting down any discussion of these issues and having teachers who some of which may be doing, actual indoctrination, some of which may be pushing their political beliefs aggressively in the classroom. And, trust me, I think we've all seen or heard stories of that. And some of which may be answering, innocent questions from kids. How do we distinguish between the two? And then on top of that, like, again, what's a parent to do in this situation? Is the only recourse for having teachers that you don't like pushing a political agenda in the classroom, or whatever it is, right? And again, I don't think it's necessarily a political agenda for a teacher to just answer a question about same-sex couples. But what is the solution for parents who say, well, look, this issue aside, what I don't want, my teacher trying to talk about like some communist nonsense in the classroom. If I don't want my teacher talking about how, great AOC is and how we're going to do a whole curriculum. What if you don't want to do that? What are the alternatives to that? And again, is the state the only way to get around that? If you don't like the educators' take on CRT or this or anything else. All right, when we come back, we'll talk about that. We'll be back on a free solution in a few minutes. Give us a call if you want to participate in the show. If you have any ideas on solutions too, give us a call, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. We're going to be back in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon.
The WISL store is now open. With nicer weather, your car needs an official Voice of Liberty bumper sticker. There's a great selection to help you show your love of God, the Constitution, and free and safe schools. Here are just a few available. Shut Up, Fauci, Kathy Hochul, Save America, Support the Second Amendment, Scam Alert, January 6th, God, Please Help Us, Close the Mexican Border, Save America, Stop Voting for Democrats. And there are gas pump stickers reading, Democrats did this. These are standard weather-resistant bumper stickers guaranteed to get you horn honks and thumbs up in traffic. Choose from other locally made WISL Voice of Liberty merch too, like tees, hoodies, drinkware, and more. Perfect gifts for any Liberty lover. Check out the exclusive WISL Mount Worstmore shirts, hoodies, and coffee mugs depicting our 4 worst presidents. Guess who's front and center? Shop the WISL store at WISL1040.com.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
There's a place in the village of Avon you and your critters will love. Whether they're big or small, whether they've got hair, fur, or feathers, Avon Feed fits every need. There's a full selection of pet foods, bird feeders, and wild bird food, plus garden tools, quality grass seed, and a great selection of dry shod boots. Buy 10 bags of quality wild bird food, get the next bag free. Choose farm feeds and great equine products from Poland Grains. Find everything for your pet from feeding bowls to toys, leads, collars, beds, crates, and tie-outs. Avon Feed and Supply has what the big pet chain stores will never have: Tim Cole and his great knowledgeable staff. Choose from premium local products like Firefly, dairy, goat soaps, and lotions. While you're at Avon Feed, don't forget your two-legged pets with River at Thousand Island cheese and great flavors, including the new 12-year-old cheddar, plus Chef James bourbon meat sauce, once again nut butters and Nunday mustards. Open weekdays 9 to 6, Saturday 9 to 4. Avon Feed and Supply, West Main Street at the bottom of the hill, just west of the Circle.
A free solution.
Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson today. Thanks again for joining us. Last segment here. give us a call 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. If you want to join the show, participate in the discussion, of course, leave your comments online too. We got us. Nate says, much like most things, the media completely skewing was actually in the bill to fit the agenda. Yeah, I mean, it's, I want to sort through some of this stuff. And I think there's been a bit of bad faith on both the Republicans and possibly the Democrats here too, about like what it is or isn't. And in some of that fear around this bill, because there's certain things I kind of agree with this. I kind of agree with some of the intent of it. And some of it I really, really don't. And think there's some constitutional concerns here. Fine. I get to be a squishy moderate today. And I did look up, I read the part of the bill too. So if there is a complaint, it's supposed to be resolved by the district first, and then there's going to be a special magistrate who's going to be a lawyer who has a bunch of experience, blah, 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 who determines the facts of disputes and decides if there is any resolution for parent complaints. So that's how that process works. So you got to hope that magistrate is going to be fair, and there's a clearer understanding of what this bill allows or doesn't allow, so we can discuss the specifics of it. But again, that's what we're always doing in these processes, right? Like we're always haggling over school curriculum. We're what do teachers teach our kids or not teach our kids, again, whether it's sexual education or politics or whatever. And again, I'll say this is generally the way I approach things. Now I'll try to do this as best as possible as I continue to dive deeper into parenthood. It's that you shouldn't rely on your students' classroom to teach them critical thinking skills. Some teachers, some classrooms are going to do a great job of that, but not all of them will. And some of them are going to try to push their beliefs on your son or daughter. And you as a parent need to equip them with the skills to be able to think for themselves, to be able to question the narratives that they're being presented with, to be able to build evidence, and to make their own coherent arguments. You can't rely on the education system to do that for you. Even if you capture this, even if you get all your folks elected to the school board, you get all your curriculums passed. No, you can't. You as a parent still have that responsibility. So it drives me nuts when I see things like, oh, well, like the schools ought to teach personal finance. The schools ought to teach, this theory that I like, this section of politics. Like, no, you got to teach that. Like, don't rely on the state to do that. Even if you are sending your kids to public school, that's something you have to do. You have to teach them to be able to think for themselves when faced with conflicting information, and have that discussion with them. When the teacher comes in and says like, well, actually, if we just tax the rich more, we'd be able to pay for healthcare for everybody, whatever, like to be able to understand the counter arguments to that they can either have in the classroom or know how and when to have that discussion, to fight that battle, or to know that in school it's just not going to work, or going to get punished for having a differing opinion in some classrooms. And boy, I'd seen it myself. And so preparing them with that stuff is what's going to be important. Again, same with the sexual education stuff. I'd mentioned this earlier. Like, yeah, you as a parent have an obligation to talk to your kids about like what you think is right, and about ways to keep safe, about body parts, about all that stuff. Like, you as parents should do that. The state is going to step in when parents don't do that. I'm not blaming the folks listening to the show, because I'm sure many of you are doing that stuff already. It's just that there needs to be a culture of doing that all across the board. Democrat, Republican, Independent, everyone all parents need to adopt that, because where we as individuals, where we as families don't step in and take that responsibility, the state is going to say, we have this gap. We see that there's this knowledge gap among kids, and we're going to fix it. We're going to save the day because, we have your kids, 8 to 10 hours a day. Sounds like we have a caller on the line, though. Paul from Livonia. Paul, what's on your mind?
Yeah. You there?
Yep, I'm here, Paul. What's up?
I think the bill, where a lot of people say it's vague, I think it's a step in the right direction. Until people stand up and really uphold the traditional family, I think the world, and especially this country, is just going to continue to decline. And, you know, I mean, we need to look at all matters of sin. And I think that's really where it boils down to. You know, it wouldn't be wrong to teach a traditional family, because that's how the world continues.
What does that mean to you, Paul? So does that mean that the state should say that only heterosexual families are moral and correct? Like the state should be telling students that?
Well, I think what the state should be doing is exactly what is right and true. And there's only two genders, you know, and when you start confusing that, that's where all the trouble comes in. It's very simple. It's just us as man, as a fallen world, we try to just distort God's truth. And that's where we fall into all these matters, you know? So, I mean, you know, where I get the whole other side, where everybody's saying is very upset with Ron DeSantis, you know, he's really standing up for the traditional family, you know, and he's standing up for what creates, because, I mean, you can do whatever you want, but two men and two women can't have a baby biologically.
Right. And so that's what you think that this bill is about. You think like it is correct to say like we should not tell kids about homosexuality at all. The state should reinforce the notion of a traditional family and proclaim any other family structures, no matter how loving, as sinful and immoral.
I believe that a school should teach what is in front of their eyes, right? So boys have certain genitalia, girls have certain genitalia. Women can become pregnant. It's general health. What New York State is teaching with all this transgender and homosexuality is a perversion of the truth, which is false. So depending on your viewpoint, you know, it's going to be perceived way different. So the reality is the school district should teach one narrative, which is basically when you look at a boy is a boy. When you look at a girl's a girl. It's very straightforward. Just like 2 + 2 = 4. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
That's how I see it. And there's nothing wrong with saying that, because that's really how it is. I mean, you literally cannot take 2 boys and 2 girls and create a baby. You can't. It's impossible. Just like 4 + 4 = 10, but it doesn't. It's always going to equal 8.
I mean, there's certainly biology, right? There's the biological aspect of it.
I don't think you have to be, you know, a scientist or a biologist or whatever term you want to use. I mean, you can just look down and you can see exactly what you have. And, you know, and so as far as what I'm saying, as far as the school goes, the school should teach straightforward biology, which is heterosexual biology. It doesn't change. It's never going to change. And when you start perverting young children at a young age, it's very, 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 very scary, because now you're going to create a generation.
So, hey, Paul, sorry, man, I'm gonna have to cut you off only because I got a minute left, right? And you know, I do appreciate you listening today. I appreciate you adding your perspective to this, because I think that they're guys like you are driving this bill forward. Again, I didn't dive into some of the constitutional issues as much as I wanted to, but to me, I'd rather get the state out of the education altogether. I still think it's a parent responsibility. If that's what you want to teach your kids, it's certainly your right to do so. And that I want parents to have more choice. If you want to go in the other direction, you want to go liberal direction, progressive, sure. If you want to go in conservative direction, sure. You should have more choice here. It's the solution I was hoping to get to. All right, thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. Give us a call. I'll talk to you on Friday. Talk to you then.
Be the light in someone's life at the Mary Cariola Center. We're passionate about making a difference in the lives of children and young adults with developmental disabilities and complex medical needs.